Hello and welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. Very warm good morning to everyone. I hope all of you are doing good. I welcome you all to today's session of the Hindu Newspaper Analysis, where we discuss all the important news stories from the Hindu newspaper, taking both the mains and the prelims perspective in mind. Also reminding you once again, just in case you are looking for any help in your preparation journey and you need some expert to talk to you, all that you need to do is click on the link of the Google form in the description of the video. There is a form that you can fill up, and by giving us the details, you'll allow one of our experts to get in touch with you, and you can have a one-on-one counseling session to ensure that all your doubts are answered. Now, with that out of the way, these are the topics that we have taken up for today's discussion. From the mains exam point of view, the first topic is about what exactly is happening in West Asia and why is Iran involved in almost every conflict. As you know, it started with the issue between Israel and Hamas. Then we saw the Houthis from Yemen attacking the merchant vessels in the Red Sea. Then we also saw Iran putting out some attacks in Iraq and also in Pakistan territory. Then Pakistan also retaliating. US also coming in, US also conducting certain strikes against the Houthis. What we will be discussing is what is happening exactly in West Asia, what are the key players here in this region, and what is Iran doing. Second topic is about the labor rules for labor who go abroad, that is outside India. The context of this article is ever since the Israel-Hamas war has started, Israel has been asking other countries to send their laborers, the workers, to come and work in their country. Indian government had accepted this, and Indian government is actually recruiting a lot of workers from India to go and work in Israel on a handsome salary as compared to what they get paid here. This has also attracted a negative response from a lot of labor unions. Many labor unions are saying that the workers who would go to a conflict-ridden country such as Israel would not be safe. So the article is about what are the provisions and regulations that ensure the safety of the workers who go abroad from India to work. From the prelims exam point of view, the first article is about how the government is now trying to give a push to tourism in the wetland areas as well. As you know, India is home to a lot of Ramsar sites, and the government realizes the potential of tourism in and around those Ramsar sites. So what is the government of India doing about it? That is what we'll be discussing. Then India-Myanmar border will be fenced soon. As per the Home Minister has announced that India-Myanmar border, where free movement regime was allowed, that is up to 16 kilometers people could walk on either side, that will be closed down most probably, and we will have double fencing on the border, similar to what is the case in India-Bangladesh border. The last article will be about a festival, the music festival in Chennai, its cultural significance, how Chennai has always been the hub of music activities. This is what we'll be discussing. Let's start with the first one. The first article is about what is happening in West Asia. Now, we have discussed this multiple times since it started in October, but just to remind you once again what exactly has happened and what exactly are the consequences. As you know, right now, as I'm speaking to you today, there are multiple conflicts that are taking place in West Asia. It all started with Hamas attack on Israel. Then Israel retaliated. Israel still is continuing its bombing in the Gaza area. After that, we have seen a lot of different groups, mainly the ones that are affiliated with Iran, that are Iran-backed groups, trying to come together, either harm the interest of Israel or harm the interest of US and other countries that are friendly to Israel. There are groups such as Hezbollah, such as Kataib Hezbollah, such as Hashad al-Shabi, Houthis, Iran itself. All of these have now become a part of what is happening in West Asia. As you know, Houthis, the rebel group in Yemen that controls almost two-thirds territory of Yemen, had attacked multiple vessels in the Red Sea, forcing the US to come up, forcing the other countries also to increase their surveillance in the Red Sea. We have also seen how Hezbollah has also attacked certain territories in Israel. The common thread in all of this is Iran. Let's talk about them one by one. Let's first start with Hezbollah. Now, we have discussed about Hezbollah earlier as well. Hezbollah is a group in Lebanon. Now, the most interesting part about Hezbollah is within Lebanon, it is actually a proper authorized political party, and it fights elections just like in India. You have so many political parties. In Lebanon, Hezbollah is a proper political party. It even has members in the parliament of Lebanon. The unique part about them is that their party specifically has their own military wing, and that military wing is supported by Iran. So what they did was they also fired rockets in Israeli territory, a territory that Lebanon says should be their territory, in solidarity with Palestine. Then the Houthis that are fighting in Yemen, they again have a backing of Iran. They have a large base of state-of-the-art weapons, including tanks. They have been supported by Iran for a long time. As we discussed, they started attacking commercial vessels in the Red Sea, again in solidarity with Palestine only. Then there is another group called Hashd al-Shabi, that is a group in Iraq and Syria. They also have been backed by Iran. They launched over 100 attacks against the US troops deployed in these countries. So the target of all these groups, directly or indirectly being supported by Iran, seems to be Israel and the US. It seems to be that Iran, rather than going into a direct confrontation with Israel or the US, is taking the help of its proxies, taking the help of the groups that Iran has been supporting for such a long time, to launch attacks of different scales, on small and on large scales, on both Israel and the US forces. Now, when Iran came under a lot of pressure, what did it do? It then started its own attack. Iran carried out strikes in Iraq, Kurdistan, Syria, and even in Pakistan as well. Their logic was that they are attacking those places where they think, number one, there are Baluch terrorists in case of Pakistan. Otherwise, they said that they are carrying out these attacks against Israel's operatives. They said that Israel is working in these areas. So it's a very gloomy situation as respect to what is happening exactly in West Asia. Now, if you look at the location of Iran, it's at a very unique location. It shares a border with multiple countries. Many of these countries don't share great relationship with Iran. As you can see here, they have attacked Pakistan, they attacked Iraq, they have even attacked Syria. They don't have great relationship with Saudi Arabia. Now, this also puts the focus on one other country that we are not really talking about right now. That is China. See, the West Asian region, or the Middle East as you call it, has always been a volatile region. There has been a history of multiple conflicts in this part of the world. One country attacking the other, there have been multiple Gulf Wars, etc. But one thing that kind of kept a balance in West Asia was the involvement of America. The American presence in West Asia, the American factor in West Asia made sure that the countries don't go overboard and make sure that at the end of the day, they have the power to control the conflict. The US did that. Now, what has changed in the past decade or so? I'll tell you what has changed. What has changed is, in the past decade or so, US all of a sudden had the discovery of the shale gas in US. From being one of the largest importers of oil, America has now become an exporter of oil. They have one of the largest outputs of oil all of a sudden. So now what the US has realized, their dependence on West Asia for oil, etc. has reduced drastically. So in the past few years, we have been seeing US taking a step back from its involvement in West Asia. Now what it has done, number one, it has given a place for China to step in. So China has been making a lot of different promises. They have been entering into many agreements with these countries, including Iran, including Saudi Arabia. In fact, if you remember, there was a peace brokered by China between Iran and Saudi Arabia as well just a few months back. So number one, China now has to prove that they also, just like the US, have the power to bring actual peace in the region, and they can also take the role of the US. Second thing that we have to understand here is, apart from China, Iran is a very unique country in the sense that you would think that with a lot of sanctions of America for such a long time, they would not be able to have a lot of money, but they still have a lot of money and they still have a lot of resources to keep on financing all these countries and all these groups across different countries. The other part of the story is, what about India? How has our response been? What is India doing? Now, India uses one simple line every single time. That is, we demand and we urge the countries to come up with a peaceful solution. Be it the Ukraine-Russia war, be it the conflict between Israel and Hamas, we have always been repeating this, that we want the countries to come to the table and have a peaceful resolution rather than taking one side. Now, with respect to what is happening here, with all the fingers being pointed at Iran, is India now willing to cut down its relationship with Iran? Not really. Just a few days back, in fact, our Foreign Affairs Minister, External Minister, Sri S. Jaishankar, was in Iran, where he had a joint press conference as well. So India is not criticizing Iran. Doesn't matter what the US say, doesn't matter what the other countries say. In fact, when Iran attacked Pakistan, when they sent the missiles to Pakistan, India's reaction was that Iran has a right to defend itself. India thinks that Iran has the right to ensure that their territory is not harmed. So India is trying to make sure that we do not have any adverse impact on our relationship with Iran, irrespective of what is happening here. India also is coming to terms with diversifying our buying of crude oil. Now, as you know, a few years back, most of our crude oil used to come from Iran. Then came the era where America, especially under Barack Obama, put a lot of restrictions on Iran. They asked India not to buy oil from Iran. India thus had to diversify our oil buying. But even then, it doesn't really mean that India has stopped interacting with Iran. India still operates a large part of the Chabahar port in Iran. India still has a lot of investment in Iran, although Iran's top exporter, Iran's top importer of oil has now become China. China-Iran relationship has become much, much closer, but even then India has not been taking a step back. That is how our diplomacy works right now. Our foreign policy dictates that we would look into our own national interests rather than listening to what the other countries are saying. We have not been keen on speaking against Iran in any way whatsoever. In fact, as I said, our External Affairs Minister, when he was in Iran, he talked about Iran's roads, urban development. He talked about India's investment in this part of the world. He talked about the fact that we want to invest more money in building Iran's infrastructure. We understand that Iran is extremely important for other projects as well, not just the Chabahar port which India operates. It's also extremely important for developing the international north-south transport corridor, using which India is eyeing connectivity to Central Asia. For those of you who don't know, this is the Chabahar port. It is extremely important because India has invested a lot of money in building of this port. India operates this port. It's extremely important in the sense that if you look at this port, it allows India to have a connectivity with Afghanistan. Afghanistan, which otherwise is a landlocked country. We don't have direct access to Afghanistan, but through Chabahar port we can. And then through it, we can also reach Central Asian part. The Central Asian countries that are extremely rich in mineral resources, they can be connected to India through this port itself. And that is why this is an extremely, extremely important country for India, irrespective of whatever they are doing in their own foreign policy front. India does not seem to be in a mood to snap its ties with Iran. Second article is about the labor protection that we give to our workers, especially when they migrate abroad. So what is the context of this article? So as I said, the context of this article is, ever since there has been a conflict between Israel and Hamas, what has happened is Israel had to push a lot of its citizens into military service. So a lot of foreigners left Israel, number one, out of the fear that something bad is happening in Israel, it's in conflict now. Secondly, a lot of factory workers, a lot of other workers in Israel were essentially forced to come and join the armed forces to defend their country. So Israel all of a sudden started facing a shortage of laborers. So they asked their friendly countries, especially India, to send some laborers to work in Israel. Taking upon that request, the NSDC stands for National Skill Development Corporation. National Skill Development Corporation. They started inviting applications from workers who want to go to Israel. They are recruiting about 10,000 workers. They will be asked to go to Israel and to work mainly in infrastructure. Now, if you actually see what is it that these workers are being offered, they are obviously getting a salary which is higher as compared to what they would get in India. The salary lump sum comes out to be 1.4 lakh rupees per month. That is what they will be paid in Israel. So, no wonder that a lot of workers are lining up for this recruitment. The recruitments are taking place in UP and Haryana. There are thousands of youth that are now getting enrolled to get this recruitment opportunity. But at the same time, some labor union and some other experts are trying to stop this recruitment activity. In fact, many of them have tried to go to court as well, saying that the government intentionally, knowingly, is forcing our workers to go to those areas which are conflict ridden. Now please try and understand this. If you are the government, your responsibility mainly is to ensure that the workers in your country or any citizen of your country does not go to an area which is conflict ridden. In fact, the government of India takes a lot of pride in telling us that, see, wherever there is a conflict, we bring our people back safely. So over here, we are pushing them in an area where there will be a lot of conflict. That is why many trade unions have challenged this move, and they are saying that this is against immigration rules under the Immigration Act. The government cannot knowingly send the people to places where there is a danger. Now, how does it work? What rules do we have? Now, please understand, when you apply for a passport as a citizen of India, there are different types of passport. Let's not talk about the diplomatic passport that diplomats get. For common people like you and me, there are two types of passport. One is called ECR. Other is called non-ECR. Non-ECR is a normal blue passport that usually most of us would get. ECR passport is orange in color. So ECR basically means immigration check required. I'll tell you what happens. In simple terms, when you go to get your passport or you submit your documents, if you have not passed class 10th, please remember, if you have not graduated from class 10th, then the passport that you get will be ECR passport. That means it is assumed that you would not be able to understand the laws in the other country, you would not be able to understand the policies, etc. So the government will give you a help from their side. The government will basically make sure that you are taken care of. That is called the ECR passport. This is specially given to those who have not passed class 10th or standard 10th exam. Now, the ECR passport that are given, it is given to workers going to 18 countries from India. What are these 18 countries? Afghanistan, Bahrain, Indonesia, Iraq, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Lebanon, Libya, Malaysia, Oman, Qatar, South Sudan, Sudan, Syria, Thailand, UAE, and Yemen. These are the 18 countries as you can see in this list. Israel is not in this list. Israel is not in this list. So it means workers who are applying under this recruitment scheme to go to Israel, they will not be given the ECR passport. They will be given the normal passport. Also, there is an investment from the workers as well. It's not that they don't have to spend any money. They will have to pay a fee to the National Skill Development Corporation. They'll have to pay for their flight tickets also, which will add up to close to 1 lakh rupees. Now, there are two ways to look at it. One way is, yes, it is a conflict zone. Israel is still launching a lot of attacks on Gaza. Hamas is also launching attacks as and when it can. So yes, no one can deny that it is still a conflict zone. However, the other way to look at it is, number one, the workers are getting a much higher pay package as compared to what they earn here. So even if you tell them that, see, this is a conflict zone, a lot of workers will still choose it because that is how the unemployment condition is here. Secondly, the second way to look at it is, if you compare Israel with some of the other countries in the region like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, etc., they are very well known to have very, very bad working conditions for the laborers. It is well known that if you go to Saudi Arabia, if you go to Qatar, the first thing that the employer will do, they will keep your passport, meaning that they will not even allow you to go back to home whenever you want. You are at the mercy of your employers, you can't do anything else. However, in Israel, there has never been such a complaint. The labor laws in Israel have been much more stricter. The labor laws in Israel are much more fairer. They are much more in favor of the workers. So in that sense, if as a worker you're going to Israel, yes, it may be a conflict zone, but yes, you can expect much better working conditions as compared to many other countries in the region. Internationally also, the ILO has two conventions to provide safeguards to the migrant workers. First was the one of 1949. This is called Migration for Employment Convention 1949. Second one is called Migrant Workers Convention of 1975. India has not ratified any of the two. Israel has ratified the first one. So Israel does say that we will follow this convention, the first one, which talks about providing proper care to the workers, whoever are coming to Israel. Now, in the past, or not just in the past, in these ongoing conflicts, there have been some workers who have lost their lives. For example, About 100 workers died in Gaza are migrant workers from Asia and African countries. Also, about 18,000 Indian citizens are in Israel right now. Most of them are working in the healthcare industry as caregiver to Israeli elders. They're working in the diamond trade. They're working as students as well. So there is a sizable presence of the Indian population in Israel. Now, Israel is not a very highly populated country. It's about close to 1 crore population, not a very highly populated country as such. In 2019, interestingly, a standing committee in the parliament had asked the center to draft a migration policy, but the government did not do that. We don't have a migration policy so far. We don't even have a refugee policy. We don't even have a migration policy. So yes, there is a need to have such kind of policy so that in the future, whenever there is migration from outside India or whenever there is migration, Indians going outside, whenever there is a refugee coming in, we should have a proper policy in place. These are the two conventions that the article has quoted. The one of 1949, it says that the states should facilitate international migration for employment and establish and maintain free assistance and information service to all these workers. Similarly, 1975 convention says that the government where the workers are coming, they have to provide measures to combat clandestine and illegal migration should be stopped, and they should respect the basic human rights of all the migrant workers. So yes, the countries who have ratified this are to ensure that these safeguards are in place. With Israel, as we discussed, Israel has ratified only the first one. India has not ratified either of the two. But in case of India, usually, India is not a country where you will have a lot of labor coming in from outside India and working here. Because see, laborers go to those places to work where they think they will get a higher pay as compared to what they can earn domestically. So you will see a lot of labor from India going to other countries, but not otherwise. I'll tell you one more thing that's from personal experience. For example, if you go to Qatar, you will see almost a wide variety of staff of Qatar is from Africa. So a lot of African countries see thousands and lakhs of people coming into countries such as Qatar. For example, if you go to any main airport, let's say Doha airport, if you land in Doha airport, apart from a very few high-ranking officials who will be local from Qatar, almost all the officers that you will see on the Doha airport will be from Africa. And they're employed by the airport authorities in Qatar. So a lot of migration happens in the way that you want to go to a country where there's a higher pay potentially as compared to where you actually are. So it's not just countries such as India, Bangladesh, Nepal that send people. Countries in Africa also send a lot of people to countries such as Qatar and other countries in West Asia. Now there's some other data also I wanted to share with you that might come in handy for you. Recently, there was a question asked in the parliament by a member of parliament from the External Affairs Minister asking that where are most of the Indians right now outside India? Which country has most of the Indians? This was the answer given. So this is the most updated answer because this was just asked a few months back. As per the External Affairs Ministry, most Indians living outside India are in UAE. Over 35 and a half lakh Indians in the UAE. So very high number. Then Saudi Arabia over 22 lakh. Then Kuwait over 8 lakh. Qatar 8 lakh. Oman over 5 lakh. As per the ministry, as per the last estimates, about 1.3 crore Indian nationals are based abroad. That includes professionals, students, experts, laborers, all of them. So about 1.3 crore Indians live outside. Also the ECR passport, as I told you, and I'll just repeat that once again. ECR passport is orange in color, which is a very recent reform. It is given to those who are not class 10th standard passed. They need some special safeguard like proper valid work permit, etc. If they go to some other country, there has to be a proper agreement between the employer. Only then they will be given the visa, only then they can go. On the other hand, if you are past class 10, then the ECR check is not required. You can go to any of these countries and work. You don't require special safeguard assistance from the side of the government. These are the two articles from the mains exam point of view. From the parents' point of view, first article, the government under the Amrit Dharohar initiative is trying to focus on increasing the tourism potential nearby the wetland areas in India. Now, as you know, the Amrit Dharohar scheme was launched by the government of India a few months back. the government is worried about reducing number of tourists coming to India. So India is one of those countries that has a lot of potential of tourism, especially international tourism. The Prime Minister, as you know, spoke about how people should travel across the entire country. So he was giving a push to domestic tourism. International tourists also coming to India, foreign tourists coming to India have declined slightly in the past, which is not a great sign. So government is trying to find out ways of how to revive them. The central government has embarked on a mission to promote tourism in the wetland area, especially in the Ramsar sites, such as the Chilka Lake in Odisha, Sultanpur Bird Sanctuary in Haryana as well. Now, you all would have read about the Ramsar Convention that comes under UNESCO. It identifies those wetlands that are of international importance and makes sure that international assistance is given to them for their preservation. India has a total of 75 Ramsar sites over here. Let me give you a homework. Tell me in the comment section, of course, which is the nation with the largest number of Ramsar sites in the world. Which country has the largest number of Ramsar sites in the entire world? Is it India? Is it some other country? Do tell me in the comment section. Also, this initiative has been taken by the Union Tourism Ministry and the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. It's a part of the Amrit Dharohar scheme. It was announced in the 2023-24 budget as well. Also, with tourism, what happens as a result of it, you develop a lot of livelihood opportunities for people living nearby the area. Whenever you go to any tourist spot, you would notice how there are small shops and how there are small stalls, etc., selling souvenirs, selling something that is made locally, chocolates or those sort of stuff. That means that there are a lot of employment opportunities that are generated because of all these activities. That's why the government wants to give a push to these. Right now, the government has not planned to launch this in all the 75 Ramsar sites. The plan is to launch it in 16 Ramsar sites, out of which 5 are taken as a pilot project for skill development of the facilitators. So the 5 that are selected to start right now are Sultanpur National Park, Haryana, Bhitarkanika Mangroves, Odisha, Chilka Lake, Odisha, Sirpur in Madhya Pradesh and Yashwant Sagar in Madhya Pradesh. Do keep a note of this. This can be asked in the prelims examination as well. The government is trying to give training to people living nearby these areas to act as facilitators, such as tourist guide, etc., such as helping the tourists who are visiting there. 30 participants have been trained in all of these Ramsar sites, which will ensure that they have better employment opportunities as well. Also, these are details about the Amrit Dharohar scheme. In short, whatever you would require for the prelims examination is in this table. The scheme was launched in last budget. Idea is to promote the conservation values of Ramsar sites in the country. It aims to have, or it has 4 components. First, species and habitat conservation, nature tourism, wetland livelihoods and wetland carbon as well, because wetlands can act as a very significant place for carbon sink, to absorb a lot of carbon and clean up the atmosphere nearby. The next article is about India-Myanmar border. Now, India and Myanmar have a very interesting equation. Myanmar shares a border with multiple Indian states. The interesting part is some of the states in the northeast want the India-Myanmar border to be closed. For example, Manipur. People in Manipur think that a lot of people from Myanmar come in illegally and they disrupt the harmony. In fact, the ongoing crisis in Manipur, many people do blame illegal migration from Myanmar also for it. Now, the fact is, as of today, India and Myanmar have an agreement called Free Movement Regime. Under this, the idea is people on both sides of the border, if this is the border, people on both sides can come up to 16 kilometers without requirement of any visa. So people living in Myanmar can come up to 16 kilometers here. People living in India can come up to 16 kilometers in Myanmar. Now, why was that signed? The idea is, if you look at the history of people living in this area, for example, look at a state such as Nagaland. Many people living in Nagaland have family ties with people living on the other side of the border in Myanmar. So their argument is that in order to meet our family, just to go to the other side of the border a few kilometers, we can't take the visa. So you have to allow us. Similarly, people living in Myanmar want to come here for their family ties, for weddings and other festivals whenever they take place. So the country decided to start this free movement regime of 16 kilometers. Now, states such as Manipur say that this is being misused. That a lot of people come in thinking or telling that they're innocent, but they stay back then and they create ruckus in India. So the government of India now has said that we will reconsider this free movement regime and we might bring it to an end. Also, because of this free movement regime, the border between India and Myanmar was not a very close border, it was kind of an open border. Now, not like the other borders. And now the government is saying that this is also something that we are rethinking on. The government is saying that now, like the Bangladesh border, we might have a double fencing on the Myanmar border as well. It's not a small border, it's 1643 kilometers long between India and Myanmar. So India thinks that it is a security concern now going forward. India has a 4096 kilometer border with Bangladesh, which has double fencing, which has worked well. Double fencing means if this is the border, then there's a fence here and there's a fence here. So there's double fencing. You would see in the movies as well. There is double fencing on the Bangladesh border. We did it to ensure that there's no illegal migration from Bangladesh, and we might do the same when it comes to Myanmar as well. As I said earlier, it is Manipur especially that wants Myanmar border to be fenced. They say that a lot of people have been coming in from Myanmar, illegally staying back and creating ruckus. On the other hand, states such as Mizoram and Nagaland are in favor of an open border because it is these states and their residents that share a family bond, family ties with the people living on the other side of the border in Myanmar. Close to 30,000 Chin from the Myanmar area have also taken shelter in Mizoram because people in Mizoram again consider them, the Chin tribes, as their family. So they have given shelter, they have asked the people from Myanmar to come in. As you know, Myanmar since Feb of 2021 is under military rule, rule of the junta. The military rule of Myanmar has not been very good or lenient on tribes in the border area, especially the Chin tribes. They say that they have been attacked, they have been killed, so they have run over to India to save themselves. Myanmar, do remember, shares a border with 4 Indian states. Do remember this. There is Arunachal Pradesh, there is Nagaland, there is Manipur, and there is Mizoram. These are the 4 states with which Myanmar shares a border, out of which, as I discussed, Mizoram and Nagaland are in favor. Manipur does not want the open border with Myanmar to continue. This was a free movement regime out of the 4 states that share a border. Do remember, it is Arunachal Pradesh that has the largest border, 520 kilometers, Mizoram 510 kilometers, then Manipur 398, and then Nagaland 215. Again, the idea of this free movement regime is to ensure the family ties between the 2 sides continue, that we don't force the families of the 2 sides to break up, and that is why it is important. The last article for the day today from a Hindu newspaper is about the rich cultural history of Chennai. Now, Chennai has a very rich history of music, especially of different types. To celebrate that, Chennai has a festival called the Chennai Sangamam. Now, Chennai Sangamam is a local festival of music and art of different types, and not just local, but they invite music from other parts of the country as well. Lot of folk music, folk arts, artists come and represent them. This was a festival that started in 2007. It had a political support for a long time, but now in the past few years it has died down. But again, there seems to be a revival once again this time around for this festival. December is usually the time when this is organized to attract people from all parts of the country, because this is the time when the weather in Chennai is not that harsh as such, and a lot of people can come in. One of the largest music festivals in the entire world, thousands of concerts are held, so it's not specially concentrated in one venue. There are multiple venues across the entire city, and you can take part in any of these. And again, visitors from all parts of the world and the artists from all parts of the world come in to make sure that this is a time where they can enjoy and indulge themselves in all this activity. Realizing this potential, UNESCO also has recognized Chennai and given it a place in the Creative Cities Network for its rich musical tradition. So do remember that as well. Usually, this festival of Chennai Sangamam has meetings of classical and folk art forms, where we see people coming in not just from Chennai but states such as Rajasthan, West Bengal, Odisha, Maharashtra as well. Mostly the folk artists and folk tribals. Do remember, the UNESCO Creator Cities Network was started in 2004 to recognize cities from all around the world, having a unique culture, having a unique theme which the other part of the world should recognize. It covers cities in 7 creative arts. First, craft and folk art. Second, media art. Third, film and design, gastronomy, literature and music. These are the Indian cities that are a part of it. Jaipur in 2015 was given a place in arts and folk art, craft and folk art. Varanasi 2015, then Chennai 2017, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Srinagar. Recent ones, the recent editions just a few months back were Kozhikode and Gwalior. These two also now have become a part of UNESCO Creative Cities Network. This brings us to the end of today's discussion. These are all the important news stories we had from the Hindu newspaper today. I hope you learned something new today. Make sure that you fill up that Google form in the comment section and also in the description of the video to get one-on-one counseling session with our experts. Also, do use our student answer writing portal to try and answer these questions. You can check each other's answers as well and give feedback to each other. The link for that portal also is given in the description of the video. Thank you so much for joining in. I'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. for the next session. Have a good day ahead. Bye-bye. Jai Hind.